Hi, everyone. It's Kyle here again with Initium Real Estate, and we are back for your October monthly market update. So let's dive right in. As I discussed before, I always like to do these kind of in the middle of the month because, of course, there's always the initial slog of data and stuff that comes out. But I always like to kind of try to find some different things to showcase for you, not just sales, prices, things like that, but diving into some other statistics that may help you understand the context of this market as we work through a much different market than maybe we were used to over the last 4 or 5 years. As always, I like to start with what the real estate board put out back at the end of September. I'll have this all attached to the video, of course. And really, Dirk, the current chair of the Victoria Real Estate Board, talks about stability in the market. So sales were down about 3% overall from September in 2024, but 5% higher than August, which is pretty normal. We always talk about the fall being what we call second spring. And we definitely have felt a pickup in activity this fall versus where we were in the summer. But, with some of the more macroeconomic headwinds that we've talked about before, I would say the fall has been steady. And when we look at some of the statistics on sales and pricing, it's been steady, balanced, but it hasn't really taken off maybe as some of us would have expected. Of course, we did have an interest rate decrease, 0.25 in September. We definitely felt a bit of a pickup in activity right now. I think it brought some confidence to people that things will become a little bit more affordable. But of course, as I've always said, when interest rates are being brought down, that is because the overall economy is a little bit sluggish and they are trying to, increase some activity in borrowing, lending, etc. So it's a fine balance of interest rate cuts can be good for the real estate market, but it might mean that there's some different challenges in the overall economy as well. Uh, Dirk's got some other great comments in here about, again, what is a balanced market? It's a good thing for the most part. If you're a seller, of course, probably most of you loved the high price increases of the 2016-17 market or 2021, but of course that was very challenging for buyers. Now we are still seeing people being able to obtain strong prices. But again, there is more choice, more opportunity for people with inventory being higher. And again, we are seeing less buyers overall in the market than we were in years past. I'm going to dive into that a little bit more here in the future. Dirk again talks about how single families and townhomes in most areas are still performing pretty strong, where that condo market is a little bit softer still. But with those interest rate decreases and probably another one coming up this month, that generally helps those first time home buyers and entry level buyers who will be the ones who normally get into the condo market. So we'll hopefully see some more activity in that segment here soon as well. And so, as always, I always like to attach these maps. Of course, this looks at single family benchmark prices in all the different geographical regions here in Greater Victoria. So, some good information here that I will share. Normally, these are mostly year over year changes. So, again, we are still seeing generally positive growth year over year in single family homes, in townhomes. And then the condo market is where we see a little bit of softness still, prices still being down year over year. And so the condo market is still recovering from where it was in the highs of really the spring of 2022. And then this graph here, of course, I've just got it broken down to the regional areas for now: Core, West Shore, Peninsula, Gulf Islands, Malahat area. But this breaks it down over the last 12 months as well. So not just looking at that year over year growth, it really looks at where things are. And as I've said in the past, we're up a little bit year over year. We're down a little bit in the last 3 to 6 months. And really, as I've said, we are in this kind of balanced, little bit up, little bit down market. And again, Victoria, as I've said before, is a very stable, great city. We are going to continue to attract people because of lifestyle, job opportunities in government, military, tech, construction, healthcare. There's a lot of good fundamentals of Greater Victoria that will continue to keep us a pretty balanced market. But again, we've still got trade wars, we've still got tariffs, we've still got a federal government who is running large deficits, which might create inflation down the road. So we've got a lot of things now that are still keeping people cautious and maybe not as eager to dive into the market. But overall, what this means, if you're buying right now, you have more choice, more selection, you have more time. If you're a seller, it really means that you need to be prepared. You need to provide value in your listing. And this is something that I wanted to talk about is real estate, especially real estate marketing, I feel has over the last 4 or 5 years has really drifted into lifestyle marketing, and everyone wants to market the lifestyle of a home. And that can be very important, of course, especially if you're selling certain kinds of properties that have certain amenities within the building, or the house has really cool features and design, great locations. And I'm talking about school catchments. Those are all important things and part of the lifestyle of a home. Living in Cook Street Village or living in Sydney, there is a lifestyle attached to that, and I think it's very important for us to market that as your agent. But right now, like I said, with all this financial stuff going on, tariffs, trade wars, all these kinds of things, even the stock market, which, in the last week or so, it's October 18th when I'm recording this video, there was some tweets sent out. Stock market took a dive in one day. By the next day, things had rebounded. But people are paying more attention to the numbers, the stock market, financials, job security. So I think it's really important to understand that right now we are in a value-driven market. And then, am I buying a home for a necessity, or is it a subjective purchase? And I would say we are seeing less and less subjective purposes, which is people saying, well, it'd be really nice to maybe have a little bit more space, or it'd be nice to go do this. But if financially it doesn't make sense and there's a lack of security in making those decisions, maybe they can't get as much for their home as they were hoping to a couple of years ago, people aren't making those moves. And because we are a market where most people move here from out of town, and with the economies in Vancouver, the real estate markets in Vancouver and Toronto being a lot shakier, there's less people moving here from other provinces. Now, of course, some people are still going to make that move no matter what. They've lived in their house in Toronto for 25 years, they've made lots of equity, but those subjective decisions are not happening quite as much. And so what this means is when we're preparing your home for sale, and anyone who's worked with me as a seller, that we put a lot of effort into preparing your home for sale. And right now, that is even more important. But it's not necessarily about trying to create a lifestyle or a feeling per se. We want people to have a great feeling when they walk in your home, but we need to showcase value because we have more competition in other homes that are for sale, and people are counting every penny, every dollar. So this is where we do generally recommend doing those little touch-ups before you get listed, right? Because any amount of money that someone has to spend when they buy your home, it generally means they're going to be offering you less. This isn't the markets of 2020, 2021, where people would give you whatever your price was and then worry about taking care of those renovations or upgrades after. I was talking to a realtor the other day, and they had a deal collapse over like a $2,500 repair because their seller just flat out refused, said, nope, they can buy my home, they can take care of it, it's not my job to repair this. And the buyer just got cold feet and said, you know what, I don't want to deal with this seller anymore. And they backed out of the deal. They had valid reasons because of an inspection, but that's the type of thing. This was on like a $1.2 million purchase and a $2,500 repair. And then that seller a couple weeks later regretted it, tried to go back. That buyer had moved on and went and bought another property. So that's just one example right now of, this isn't the same market as years past. We have to do all the little things. Yes, staging, all the lifestyle, good feeling stuff has to be done. But it is a case of, again, you have to provide value in your home because people have to see the value to want to move forward. So just something to think about if you're thinking about maybe selling in the spring next year, or you're still thinking about selling this year. What can I do to my home to provide good value? And that doesn't always mean doing massive upgrades, because again, if you keep increasing the price of your home by doing upgrades, you might push yourself into a price point where there's not as many buyers. And I have a lot of statistics and stuff, and we have some great showing activity reports we can always talk to you about in your neighborhood, about what price points in your neighborhoods are seeing the most activity, and what price point do you want to be in to attract the right kind of buyer. So yeah, very important to, again, showcase that as we go along. And some other stuff I wanted to talk about when we look at market statistics as well is, we talked a lot about new listings, we talked a lot about active listings, but what about expired and canceled listings, right? So how many homes are coming onto the market and that aren't selling, or are canceling and being relisted, right? So whenever you're working with me, I do provide a lot of information around days on market, right? And the one thing that I always say is the days on market that we track on the MLS can definitely be skewed for how long it takes to sell a home, because as realtors, what we do sometimes is, if your home is on the market for 60 days and it doesn't sell, instead of just reducing the price and keeping that listing going for another 100 days or another 40 days, we will cancel the listing and then relist it. So a home may be on the market for 60 days, and then it may get canceled and then be on for another 10 days. And yet there's two market statistics there, right? That 10 days will bring down that average days on market, where actually that home was on the market for 70 days. So I like to look at cumulative and say, okay, how many markets or how many listings are generally expired or being canceled in a given month. And one of the stats that I wanted to look at here, and I'll attach this to the video, is the number of expired listings in a month. And this compares it to average days on market. So when we look at the trends here, here's how many listings are expiring in a given month, expiring or being canceled. And then here's the average days on market. So it makes sense that as the average days on market goes up, we are seeing more expired and canceled listings. So it kind of runs in parallel with each other. But you'll see definitely when days on market comes down a significant amount, the expired listings does come down, but not nearly as much, because even in those really hot markets, there are still people who overprice their home. There are still new developments where it takes time for all those units to be absorbed. But yes, you can definitely see some different trends here as we work through that. The other expired listings that I wanted to compare to is the active number of listings. So again, however many total listings are out there, and then how many expired listings are we seeing in that same given month. And so the interesting part here is it's a little bit of an inverse. So when we see more expired listings happening, spiking, we're actually seeing the number of active listings coming down. Now, when I review this, a lot of it is very seasonal. So we generally see more expired listings getting close to that October, November, December, getting towards the end of the year, right? January. So we'll see expired listings spike at the same time that a lot of those listings that are set to expire at the end of the year. So overall listings always comes down as we get close to those winter months, and we start to see expired listings go up. So just interesting to kind of track, but these numbers may surprise you, right? That we have had, periods where we've had over 1,600 listings expire in a given month. And that can seem like a lot, because I think there's still an attitude or a belief that everything sells, right? It's the Victoria market, real estate's always active. No, there are many, many home sellers who do not experience a sale. And that can be for a multitude of reasons. But it's just something to think about, that, again, what I was just saying before about putting your home on the market right now, it is really important to understand that you are just not guaranteed, because it's Victoria and the market has generally been pretty active, that you're guaranteed a sale. And so when I look at that trend, 1 second here, as I flip back through, I'll bring up for this given month. So I did a quick search of the last 45 days, which is roughly since I did my last market update. So in the last 45 days, there have been 1,122 expired, canceled, or withdrawn listings. And you're saying, okay, well, great. What does that mean? Well, right now we currently have 3,555 listings on the market. So about 33%, or a third of the market, are not experiencing sales with their original or listed price. And so that shows you that you can't just go out there and price your home at whatever number and you're guaranteed a sale, especially if you're trying to compare to prices that were back in the spring of 2022, which is when people said, oh, my neighbor sold for 1.2 million. I want to get the same number. We have a similar home. The market may not be there. And we're seeing that both with the price points and then this trend of expired listings. So more homes are coming to the market and not necessarily experiencing a sale. So pricing is so important, as well as making sure your home is fully ready and taking care of all those small little repairs, like I was just talking about. And so again, this is something that what I've been sharing with people too is, what is the activity out there? Because we're still experiencing good sales. But what I kind of use as an anecdotal story is, when your home hits the market, and I always talk about this, the first 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks is still so important for your initial listing, because people say, well, let's test the market. We can test the market, but you need to respond quickly with your pricing, because what we're seeing a lot of now is your home will hit the market. And if you're in a general category that's pretty popular, house with a suite, townhome in a good family oriented area, you will still get an initial wave of four, five, six, seven showings. And after that, it gets pretty quiet because there is not just wave after wave after wave of buyers out there right now. So you have to realize that that first initial wave is one of the most important ones that you need to capitalize on. Because if you don't meet that market, you could be waiting another 2, 3, 4 weeks for another potential buyers. And those are the ones that are entering the market, or the ones that are going to wait for your home to sit on the market for at least 2 to 3 weeks because they might like it, but they might think the price is a bit high and they definitely don't want to compete. I've got some great listings right now and some great listings in the recent past. And definitely we've had homes that have experienced a lot of showings, but when that offer comes in, there's parties that you would think, oh, they said they like it, they're going to come write a competing offer. But the general sentiment from buyers seems to be, I do not want to compete for a home unless it is very, very, very strongly priced where it creates the momentum of getting multiple offers. But many people right now, again, because that cautiousness that I talked about at the beginning, they're just not wanting to compete and overspend in a market that has a little bit of uncertainty to it at the same time. So overall, though, it is still a great time to buy or sell, especially because it's balanced and both parties on both sides have a little bit more time to work through things. So it's just something that definitely talk to me, talk to your agent if you're someone who's here just watching for all this information. But I definitely think it's something where you need to be prepared and understand the current state of the market. And a lot of the stats I'm giving here are very general, right? I can dive in deeper into your local neighborhood, your local comparables, and then we can look at a lot of different information so we can understand what price point you need to be at to achieve a good sale, and what updates, repairs, touch ups do we need to do so that your home is the best presented out to this current market. So I'm going to leave it there for now. Some other great things, of course, you're going to see one of my featured listings down below in this email. I'm featuring my beautiful home in View Royal right now at 12 Jedburgh. This is a great, solid 1950s house with a nice two-bedroom suite downstairs, backing onto some great arbutus and Gary oak trees. So please make sure to check out that listing. And if you know anyone, would love you to share it with all your friends and family who are looking for a great home. And of course, we're going to dive in below. It is October. I'm a Halloween guy, kind of. I either get really dressed up and go all out, or I do absolutely nothing and I'm sleeping by, I don't know, 9 p.m. with a box full of candy. So there's some great links below that my assistant has included for events happening here, in Greater Victoria and across Southern Vancouver Island. So make sure to check those out. If you're one of my clients and I know you and your kids and your family, I want to see the photos of you all dressed up. I think Halloween is one of the best events for kids to get out there, get dressed up, have some fun. I remember some great memories being a kid. I think I dressed up as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle for like 4 or 5 years in a row. So big Michelangelo guy. But anyway, as always, I really appreciate you tuning in and watching this video. I know I can go a little bit longer, but I've gotten some good feedback. I don't want to just make this a quick little thing for social media. I am here to really dive into some market statistics and try to talk to you about different things going on in the market than just saying, hey, the market's hot, the market's not, whatever. So really appreciate you watching these videos and any of the feedback that you do share. So anyway, have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Take care.